I never thought the day would come when my own son would look me in the eye and lie without blinking. But the real betrayal didn't come from his words. It came from a piece of paper. A paper that stole my house, my dignity, and almost my will to live. My name is Edward Miller. I am 67 years old. And this is the story of how my son secretly signed my lifetime property into his wife's name, right behind my back. Before you see what happens next in my life story, subscribe to this channel. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from, your city or country, and whether you've ever been betrayed by your own family. That house wasn't just a house. It was the reward for a lifetime of sacrifice. I worked for 43 years in construction. Rain, heat, injuries, I took them all without complaint. I skipped vacations so my son could go to a better school. I skipped pleasures so my wife could live comfortably. When my wife passed away, that house became my only companion. Every corner had memories. Her laughter in the kitchen. My son running down the hallway as a child. That house was supposed to be my safe place. Instead, it became the place where I was betrayed. My son Daniel was everything to me. I raised him alone after his mother died. I cooked, cleaned, worked double shifts, and still showed up to every school meeting. I trusted him blindly. So when he married Laura, I welcomed her like my own daughter. At first, she was sweet. Too sweet. She called me Dad, touched my feet on holidays, told everyone how lucky she was to have such a caring father-in-law. I believed it. That was mistake number one. After the wedding, things started changing slowly. Very slowly. Daniel stopped asking my opinion. Laura started making decisions. Furniture moved. Locks changed. Rooms became private. I felt uncomfortable. But I told myself I was overthinking. Because when you love your child, you make excuses for them. Then I fell sick. A minor surgery turned serious. Painkillers. Strong medication. My mind wasn't clear. That's when Daniel came to me with documents. Dad, he said gently, this is just paperwork. For the house. It'll make things easier in the future. I tried reading the pages, but the words blurred together. Laura stood behind him. Watching. Silent. I asked, is this necessary? Daniel smiled. Trust me, Dad. And I did. That signature was the biggest mistake of my life. Weeks passed. Then letters started arriving. Not in my name. Electricity bill, Laura. Property tax notice, Laura. I laughed at first. Then fear crept in. I asked Daniel directly. He avoided the question. Laura answered instead. This house is legally mine now. I felt my chest tighten. I demanded to see the papers. And there it was. My signature. On documents transferring my entire property to my daughter-in-law. Without explanation. Without consent. Without mercy. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed, holding those papers, shaking. I realized something terrifying. I wasn't a father in that house anymore. I was a liability. Within days, my treatment began. Food stopped coming on time. My room was needed. My presence became inconvenient. One evening, Daniel said it out loud. Dad, maybe it's time you find another place. I looked at him. And in that moment I knew. The son I raised was gone. They packed my belongings. One suitcase. That's all my life was reduced to. I walked out of my own house. Without knowing where I'd sleep that night. But as I stepped outside, one thought burned inside me. They thought I was weak. They thought I was finished. They were wrong. I slept on a friend's couch that first night, staring at a ceiling that wasn't mine. The room smelled unfamiliar. The silence felt cold. For the first time in decades, I didn't know where I belonged. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that house. My house. And my son's face. Blank, distant, like I was already a memory he wanted to forget. By morning, the shock faded. Something else replaced it. Clarity. Not rage. Not tears. Clarity. They hadn't just taken my home. They had planned it. And plans leave trails. I went back to the house the next afternoon. Not to argue. Not to beg. I needed my documents, old files, medical papers, bank statements. Laura opened the door. She didn't invite me in. She blocked the entrance with her body. "You can't come inside without permission," she said. I looked at her calmly. "This is still my house," I replied. She smiled. A slow, cruel smile. "Not anymore." She stepped aside just enough to let me see inside. The living room looked different. New curtains. My wife's photo gone. Furniture rearranged like I had never existed. Daniel stood near the stairs. He wouldn't look at me. That hurt more than Laura's words. "I just need my papers," I said. Laura crossed her arms. "You should have taken them when you left." I walked past her anyway. She didn't stop me. Because confidence had made her careless. In my old room, drawers were half empty. Files missing. Important ones. Someone had already been searching. I felt my hands shake, not from fear, but from realization. They were cleaning up. I gathered what remained and left. As I stepped outside, Laura called after me. "You should accept reality," she said loudly. "At your age, fighting will only make things worse." At my age, I didn't turn around. Because some words don't deserve an answer. That evening I met a lawyer. A quiet man. Sharp eyes. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned forward and said something that changed everything. "Mr. Miller, this isn't just betrayal. This could be fraud." My heart pounded. He explained slowly. Property transfers signed while under heavy medication could be challenged. Especially if pressure or deception was involved. I told him about my surgery. The painkillers. My confusion that day. His pen stopped moving. "That matters," he said. For the first time since being thrown out, I felt hope. Then he asked, "Were there any witnesses?" I closed my eyes. And suddenly remembered. My neighbor. An old friend who had visited that afternoon. He had even said, "Let him rest. He's not thinking clearly." Daniel ignored him. That memory felt like a lifeline. The lawyer nodded. "We'll start with a legal notice." The first move. When Daniel received it, he finally called me. Not as a son. As a man under pressure. "Dad, why are you doing this?" he asked sharply. "People are talking." People. Not me. Not my pain. People. "I want my house back," I replied calmly. He went silent. Then said something I'll never forget. "Laura says you agreed to everything?" "Laura says?" That's when I realized how deep this went. 2 days later, Laura showed up at my friend's house. Uninvited. She sat across from me like this was a business meeting. Cold. Calculated. "You're making this difficult," she said. She placed the paper on the table. A settlement offer. A small amount of money. In exchange for withdrawing the case. In exchange for silence. I stared at it. 43 years of work. Reduced to a number on paper. I pushed it back. "I want my home," I said. Her expression hardened. "You'll lose," she said. "Judges don't favor old men who change their minds." There it was again. Old man. I looked at her and said quietly, "I didn't raise my son to steal from me." She stood up. "This will get ugly," she warned. I met her eyes. "It already is." That night, Daniel sent me a message. Not a call. A message. "Please stop this. You're hurting the family." Hurting the family. I typed back slowly. "You hurt this family the moment you betrayed your father." The court date arrived. Walking into that courtroom felt unreal. I had stood on construction sites my entire life. But this was a different kind of battlefield. Daniel sat beside Laura. She held his arm tightly, possessively. When the judge asked me to speak, my voice shook. But I spoke. I told the truth. About my illness. My trust. The signature. About being asked to leave my own home. The courtroom went quiet. Then my neighbor stood up and told his story. How I was confused. How Daniel rushed me. How Laura watched silently. Daniel's face turned pale. Laura stopped smiling. The judge didn't give a verdict. But his words were heavy. These allegations are serious. This court will examine them closely. That sentence hit Laura like a crack in glass. Outside the courtroom, Daniel finally faced me. Dad, let's settle this, he said softly. I looked at him and saw fear. Not regret. Fear. I walked away without answering. Because I had learned something important. They thought I was weak. But weakness doesn't survive betrayal. And as I sat alone that night, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't just take my house back. I would take back my dignity. The days after the first hearing were heavier than I expected. I wasn't living anymore. I was waiting. Waiting for phone calls. Waiting for court dates. Waiting for the truth to catch up with the lies. Every morning, I woke up with the same thought. How did my life come to this? My lawyer didn't waste time. He started digging. And the deeper he went, the uglier it got. The property transfer wasn't just suspicious. It was rushed. Poorly documented. And filled with contradictions. Dates didn't match. Witness names didn't line up. Signatures appeared where they shouldn't have. This wasn't carelessness. This was intent. Then something else surfaced. Bank statements. Large withdrawals. Transfers I never authorized. Money moved from my account into a joint account Daniel shared with Laura. My savings. The money I kept for emergencies. For my old age. Gone. When my lawyer showed me the numbers, my hands trembled. Not from fear. From realization. They weren't just stealing my house. They were draining my life. Meanwhile, Laura went on the offensive. She began calling relatives. Old friends. Even people from my church. Telling them I was confused. That I was forgetful. That I had agreed to everything and now regretted it. Some believed her. Phones stopped ringing. Invitations stopped coming. I was being erased. Losing your home hurts. Losing your reputation. That nearly destroyed me. But it also hardened me. Because when you have nothing left to lose, you stop being afraid. The second hearing arrived. This time, Laura's lawyer was aggressive. He questioned my mental health. My memory. My age. He asked the judge if someone like me could be trusted to remember details accurately. I felt anger rise in my chest. But I stayed calm. When it was my turn, I said one sentence. I remember trusting my son. The courtroom fell silent. The judge looked directly at Daniel. Daniel looked down. Then my lawyer presented my medical records. Proof that on the day I signed those papers, I was under strong medication. Sedatives. Painkillers. Not fit to make legal decisions. Laura shifted in her seat. Her confidence cracked. Next came the handwriting expert. A quiet woman with glasses. She explained how genuine signatures flow naturally. Then she pointed to mine. The pauses. The pressure. The unnatural strokes. This signature, she said, was guided. My hand had been held. Forced. The courtroom gasped. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm. Hard. Daniel winced. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The judge turned to Daniel. Did you benefit from this transfer? Daniel hesitated. Seconds felt like minutes. Then he whispered, Yes. That one word destroyed everything. The judge ordered a temporary ruling. Laura was barred from selling or altering the property. A financial audit was ordered, and I was granted limited access to the house. Not ownership yet, but something powerful. Leverage. Returning to the house felt unreal. My furniture was gone. Walls repainted. My wife's things removed. It felt like someone had erased my life. But I also felt something else. Strength. Because I was no longer invisible. That night, while organizing what little remained, I found something hidden. A folder. Receipts. Bank slips. Large transfers. Dates matched the property signing. This wasn't just fraud. It was coordinated. I copied everything. Took photos. Sent them to my lawyer. He replied late that night. This changes everything. Laura sensed it. She grew restless. Her temper flared. She shouted at Daniel constantly, blaming him, calling him weak. Neighbors started noticing. Cracks were forming. One evening, I stood quietly near the hallway and listened. Laura yelled, "You promised me this would be over." Daniel replied, "I did everything you asked." That was all I needed to hear. The final hearing was scheduled. The judge warned both sides. If fraud is proven, consequences will be severe. Laura's face turned pale. Daniel stopped sleeping. I could see it. They were breaking. That night, alone in my old bedroom, I sat on the bed and whispered, "You tried to bury me. But I'm still here." The days leading up to the final hearing felt unreal. The house was quiet in a way that made my skin crawl. Not peaceful. Suspicious. Daniel barely spoke. He moved around like a shadow, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped. Laura, on the other hand, was restless. Phone calls late at night. Whispers behind closed doors. Doors slamming. Panic had entered the house. My lawyer called me one evening. "They're under pressure," he said. "And pressure makes people careless." He was right. 2 nights before court, Laura made the mistake that destroyed everything. I was sitting in the living room, sorting through old photographs. Photos of my wife. Of Daniel as a boy. Memories they couldn't steal. Laura walked in and shut the door behind her. Hard. "You need to end this," she said. No greeting. No respect. Just demand? I looked up calmly. "I'm done talking," I replied. She stepped closer. "You don't understand how this works," she said sharply. "You'll lose." Judges don't like old men who suddenly change their minds. Old men. Again. I didn't respond. That angered her. She leaned in and said low and fast, "You signed those papers because Daniel helped you. You were weak. You didn't even know what you were doing." She froze. Her eyes widened. She realized what she had just admitted. What she didn't know. My phone was in my shirt pocket. Recording. I stood up slowly. Said nothing. And walked past her. She called after me. "Delete that case. Or I'll ruin you." I didn't turn around. Because she had already ruined herself. That night, I sent the recording to my lawyer. He listened. Then called me back immediately. His voice was calm. Almost satisfied. "This is an admission," he said. "Coercion. Elder abuse. This ends it." Court day arrived. The courtroom was packed. Laura walked in confident, too confident. Her lawyer smiled like they were already celebrating. Daniel looked broken. Dark circles under his eyes. Hands trembling. When the judge entered, the room went silent. Proceedings began. Laura's lawyer spoke first. He tried to downplay everything. Called it a family misunderstanding. Claimed I had changed my mind. Then my lawyer stood and asked permission to present new evidence. The judge nodded. The recording played. Laura's voice filled the courtroom. Clear. Cold. Confident. You signed those papers because Daniel helped you. The room froze. Laura jumped up. That recording is illegal, she shouted. The judge raised his hand. Sit down. He listened to the entire recording. Every word. Every admission. When it ended, Laura's lawyer sat down slowly. Defeated. The judge looked directly at Laura. You have admitted to coercion, he said. And involvement in elder abuse. Laura's face drained of color. Then the judge turned to Daniel. You allowed this to happen to your father. Daniel broke. Completely. Tears streamed down his face. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he said weakly. She handled everything. Blame. Even now. The judge's voice was firm. You benefited from the fraud. Daniel nodded silently. That was enough. The court issued immediate orders. The property transfer was suspended. Full ownership rights temporarily restored to me. A criminal investigation launched. Financial accounts frozen. Laura's hands shook uncontrollably. She had lost control. Outside the courtroom, cameras waited. Laura covered her face. Daniel looked smaller than I had ever seen him. My lawyer leaned toward me and said quietly, It's over. That night, Laura packed her bags. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She blamed Daniel. Called him weak. Called him useless. Then she left. Without looking back. Daniel collapsed. Sank onto the couch like a man who had lost everything. He knocked on my bedroom door late that night. For the first time in months. Dad, he whispered. I'm sorry. I looked at him. And felt something strange. Not anger. Not forgiveness. Just sadness. I trusted you, I said quietly. He broke down again. I know. The house felt different after Laura left. Lighter. But still wounded. Because one last thing remained. The final judgment. And the decision I would have to make. Would define the rest of my life. The day of the final hearing arrived. I woke up early, dressed slowly, and looked around the house I had built with my own hands. Everything still felt fragile. The walls, the furniture, even the air seemed charged with tension. After months of betrayal, lies, and manipulation, it was finally time to face justice. Daniel didn't speak to me that morning. He barely looked at me. Shame and fear weighed him down like a stone around his neck. Laura had vanished completely. Her absence was like a warning. She had lost before the case even started. When the judge entered the courtroom, the silence was suffocating. Everyone present knew this was more than a property dispute. It was a story of betrayal, greed, and a father's fight for justice. My lawyer went first. He laid out everything: the coercion, the forgery, the financial misappropriation. He played the recording of Laura's admission. He presented bank statements, medical records, witness testimony. Every detail meticulously documented. Then the judge asked me to speak. I took a deep breath. For months, I had imagined this moment. All the anger, fear, humiliation. I had to channel it into words. I am 67 years old, I said. My house is not just property. It is the life I built. I raised my son. I paid for his education, his wedding, his future. I trusted him with everything I had. And yet he betrayed me. Not once, but repeatedly. And for what? For money. For greed. For power. I never wanted this fight. I never wanted to hurt my family. But I cannot allow lies and theft to stand. I am not asking for revenge. I am asking for what is rightfully mine. The courtroom was silent. Even the stenographer paused. Then the judge asked Daniel to speak. Daniel stood slowly. Tears in his eyes. His voice trembling. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what I was doing. I let her lead me. I let greed blind me. I never wanted to hurt you. He broke down completely. The judge looked at him with a steady, piercing gaze. Your apologies, while noted, do not erase the actions taken. This court must restore what was stolen and ensure such violations are punished appropriately. Then came the final orders. Full ownership of the property restored to me. Daniel and Laura held accountable for financial misappropriations. Criminal investigation proceeding against Laura for elder abuse and coercion. Daniel required to pay restitution for mismanaged funds. Immediate access granted to all my accounts and possessions. I felt a rush of relief, not joy, not celebration. Relief. Because justice, finally, had been done. But as I looked at Daniel, broken and ashamed, I realized something. He had learned the hard way. Not through punishment alone, but through seeing the consequences of betrayal. That evening, I walked back into my house alone. Everything was as it should be. My furniture restored. My belongings back in place. Photos of my late wife on the walls again. It felt peaceful. Daniel came later. He stood quietly in the doorway. "Dad, can we start over?" he asked, voice small. I studied him. I saw remorse. I saw the son I had loved once again, buried beneath months of mistakes and deceit. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I said, "Actions speak louder than words. Show me you've changed." He nodded silently. The night was calm. For the first time in months, I slept in my own bed without fear. I realized something important. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoring what was taken. It's about dignity. It's about surviving betrayal and emerging stronger. Weeks passed. The criminal investigation against Laura continued. Daniel slowly rebuilt trust. Not overnight, not perfectly, but step by step. And me? I finally felt at home again. Sometimes, I think about that day I signed the papers. The day I trusted my own son blindly. It hurt. It scarred me. But it also taught me this. Even in the darkest betrayal, even when the people you love the most fail you, you can fight back. You can reclaim your life. And you can survive. I looked around my house that night. Every corner held memories of pain, yes, but also resilience. Every brick reminded me of the years I'd built something lasting. Not just a home, but a life of integrity, strength, and justice. And I whispered to myself, "You tried to bury me alive, but I grew stronger underground."